Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bean Report YouTube edition. Before we start chatting and yapping about anything, we are going to jump right into sports coverage today so we can talk about our first thing, and then once the first thing is we see what happens, then we can actually talk about it. So first we're going to jump into the NBA. So we left it last week where the series was still undergoing. We saw the 2 games in San Antonio since then. We've seen the 2 games in New York since then. Of course, we know that the Knicks, they took game 1 in San Antonio, surprise, by 10 points, 105-95. That was the first of many games where the Knicks would dominate the fourth quarter, and another one of the usual games where the Spurs won most of the game. The Spurs led for 56% of the game. Knicks had their largest lead of 14 points. Then we go to game 2. Knicks won that one again in San Antonio, 105-104. Pretty much the same thing again. This time San Antonio did win the fourth quarter. Knicks did dominate the second and third quarters, though. But Knicks, one game in the series where they led for half the time. But Spurs, again, still had a 12-point lead at one point, which they blew, and the Knicks ended up winning that game. Game 3 back in the Garden, though. First time swapping homes in New York. Road team wins the third straight game as the Spurs win 115-111. This was a game where the Spurs got out to an early lead and were able to maintain it. They led for 78% of this game, had a 12-point lead. Then we go to our second game in New York, and this one is game 4 here was crazy as the Knicks were down 29 at one point. The Spurs led for 97% of the game. The Knicks led for 2%. Their largest lead, their largest lead was 1 point. Spurs, as I again said, 29 points, and that was they led by 20 something points at one point with like 10 minutes left in the second. So the Knicks looking like they were going to lose game 4 at home, gonna send fans home, wishing for more. 0 for 2 at home. First finals back since 1999. And they come back from down 29. Jalen Brunson scored 36 points. Just Spurs couldn't make a shot. I mean, they had 76 points in the first half and could only combine for 30 in the second half. So Knicks stormed back into game 4. So instead of an even series going back to San Antonio, Knicks are up 3-1, one game away on the verge of an NBA title. So that game took place Saturday. It's Wednesday. By now we know what happened, but still, we're going to look at this game and then talk about what happened afterwards. Game 5 back in San Antonio. Crowd getting into it. Player intros. Knicks ahead in the series by a score of 3-1, looking to clinch their first NBA Finals in 53 years here with a win in San Antonio. The Knicks won their first 2 games on the road in San Antonio before going one at home. Starting off, the Spurs, Wembanyama getting in the paint and throwing down a 2-handed slam. On the other end, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, who's going to find time wide open. Most open he's been this entire playoff run, connects for the first basket for the Knicks on that 3. Knicks had kind of got known in this first quarter, and that's what the Spurs are doing, getting out to a lead here, 3 points. Wembanyama with that 2-handed slam. Dylan Harper working his way to the basket, and he's going to float one up and get it through the contact. Harper, rookie, 20-year-old, has been playing extremely well this playoff run. Fox with the 2-pointer right there. Spurs up to a 10-point lead. Brunson cutting that 1-7, but still Spurs maintaining an early lead here in the first quarter as we move on to the second quarter. And Knicks just looking to cut things down. Alvarado in the corner, denied by Wembanyama, part of an early flurry of blocks for him. Towns, as shot clock expires, is going to throw that one up, but somehow get to it. But see here, Spurs up 13 here. Wembanyama, who's just going to find open space and take it for 3, scoring from all over the place here in this game. Knicks on the other end, though. Brunson, you're going to see a common theme here of him just working isolation here, just pulling up over Keldon Johnson, connecting on that one. This time working on the other side of the court, going to throw it up, and Bridges, he's going to pull the trigger from the top of the key and connect from 3. Knicks slowly getting the lead down here. Minute and a half left. Hart going slow until he speeds it up, gets tripped and throws up the N1 here, bringing the lead down. But time expiring, Devin Vassell is going to get it up, and he's going to get the basket to fall, giving the Spurs a 5-point lead here at the end of the second quarter. Going into the third quarter, though, this is usually when the Knicks start to turn it on over their opponents. De'Aaron Fox up 3 at 10 minutes left in the third. He's going to find Castle, who's going to corner. Champagny extend that lead here. Now 7 points. Next possession, Champagny. OG goes flying by. Plenty of time here to shoot that one and bring the 10-point lead in. Brunson, he's just going to work. He's going to find Bridges wide open in the corner, connecting on that one. Another 3-pointer for Bridges. But it's still a 9-point lead here until OG is going to step back, just get swatted by Vassell like a fly. Brunson, third quarter, still just working things down. No Wemby on the court. But Wemby's back. Brunson's going to shoot a 3 in his face, but Wemby in his landing room should have gotten called for a foul there, not giving Brunson proper landing room, but still, Hart connecting on a 3-pointer here, bringing the lead down into the fourth quarter here. This is the next time when they always come back. Spurs looking to close out in the fourth quarter for the second time this series, up 7. Johnson bringing a 10-point lead here with 10 minutes to go. Up 7, it's Vassell who's going to find Wembanyama, who drives and throws down the little pump dunk. Spurs up 8, 7 minutes left. Brunson, who's just going to work in the paint, fakes Wemby to go into that corner and throws up that layup off the glass. Again, Brunson just finding his way, sneaking past Wembanyama, getting it in to go. Now, Knicks down 2. Brunson again driving. No Wemby on the court. Doesn't matter. Still gets it off the glass and in. Hart's going to find Towns, who's going to find over to Hart. OG, who's going to throw it down. Ref is going to call it a goaltending violation. Shot's going to count. Knicks bring a 3-point lead here with 2 minutes left. Knicks on a 15-2 run. Wembanyama on Towns. Towns fouls him, pushes him over. That is Towns' 6th foul. Karl-Anthony Towns fouls out here. You see the surprise on his face and Josh Hart's face. Free throw time here. Wembanyama, he's going to shoot. He misses the first one. Connects on the second one, though. 2-point lead here for the Knicks. Harper driving. He's going to put it up. And he's going to connect on that one. Tie game with a minute to go. This time it's Brunson driving. Who else? He's going to throw up a little floater, and he's going to connect on that one. Jalen Brunson taking the 2-point lead here. On the other end, Fox finds Wembanyama, who's going to throw it up into the corner. Back to Fox. Fox is going to miss. Josh Hart's going to get the rebound instantly to Jalen Brunson. Brunson, who's going to work on Fox. What has been happening this time? Josh Hart, top of the key, puts up a 3, misses. Rebound goes to Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper now pushing onto the other end. 30 seconds left. Puts up that shot, and he misses the layup. Josh Hart gets the rebound, and he's going to get fouled by De'Aaron Fox with 26 seconds left. Hart connects at the line for the first one. 3-point lead, but misses here. Mitchell Robinson gets the offensive rebound, kicks it out to Shamet until OG gets it, and he's going to have to get fouled by Cornette. 3-point lead here with 21 seconds. OG connects on the first one, but like Hart, misses the second one. This time Spurs getting the rebound. Vassell calling a timeout. 20 seconds left, down 4. Wemby, he's going to get it, and he's going to throw up a 3. Miss, but Castle throws down the putback slam there. Good time to step up. 16 seconds left, down 2. Brunson, he's going to get it. Spurs not fouling until shot. It looks like it's going to go over backcourt. It looks like there's a foul. There's a foul now finally called. 8 seconds left. Bridges at the line. He's going to miss the first one. 2-point lead here, but connects on the second one. 8 points. Spurs inbounding here. They're going to find Harper. He's going to get it. Instantly fouled, though, by Shamet, though. 8 seconds left. Harper missed the first one and tried to intentionally miss the second one. Get the offensive rebound, but OG gets it. Misses the first one. Knicks can't make 2 free throws here to close out this game, but they can go 1 of 2 at least, leaving 7 seconds left. Fox going up the court. Spurs needs a quick 3. Wemby, he's going to get it, throw it up, and he's going to miss. OG gets the rebound, throws it up in celebration. The New York Knicks win the NBA championship. Jalen Brunson going over to Mitch Johnson. Immediately, you see his father behind him. Knicks crowd in San Antonio celebrating, losing their minds. Victor Wembanyama leaving the court after the loss. You see the Knicks here celebrating their first championship in 53 years, the Larry O'Brien Trophy, here on stage in San Antonio as the Knicks celebrate their championship win. Unbelievable. Simply unbelievable. For the first time in 53 years. Since 1973, the New York Knicks are your NBA champions. A sentence that is strange to say given the history of the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of this franchise, but the Knicks finally do it. Jalen Brunson led the way for the Knicks with 45 points. Just under half of this team's total points. like 49, 48% team's total points. He was 14 to 27 from the field. He had 4 threes, 3 boards, 3 assists, and 2 steals, but 45 points for the captain in New York. Dylan Harper led the way for the Spurs with 25 points on 10 and 19 shooting, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 threes, and a block. Regardless of the outcome here in the finals in 5 games, Dylan Harper played extremely well during this series. He is someone who next year, I mean, he's only a rookie, which is crazy. He is 20 years old. When he plays, when he goes in the next season, he's got to get more playing time. He averaged 18 points over the series with 7 rebounds, 3 assists a game. I mean, Spurs are going to be back at this point. They're going to be back in the finals at some point during their time. Victor Wembanyama will be back when he's older and more mature. But that was just the kind of what happened. Who won? The Knicks were a little bit more mature. They were the more composed. I mean, clearly the more composed team. You saw the breakdown of all these games. I mean, this game here, Knicks won by 4 points. Usually in the series, they've won by 1 or 2, but still another case in this game where Spurs led for most of the time. 84% of the time in this game, the Spurs led. Knicks led for 10% of the game. The other half was tied. The other part was tied, but only a 4-point lead, and that 4-point lead is what they won by. So, Knicks just the more experienced, more composed team under pressure at this point. Victor Wembanyama also had 19 points and 14 rebounds, 5 blocks for him. A lot of those blocks came early, not a lot late. Look at Mikal Bridges on 14 points, 5 of 10 shooting with the second highest leading score on the Knicks. But, I mean, it was just a Mikal Bridges, sorry. Mikal Bridges did well. But it was a Jalen Brunson show. So, of course, we mentioned first New York championship since 1973. Jalen Brunson is your finals MVP. He averaged 32.6 points this series. Also added in 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. But I mean, Brunson, he shot well when it mattered. He did not shoot well, really, by any means, except for in the last game. But games 1 and 2, he had field goal percentage under 35% and a 3-point percent under 25%. He just shot well towards the end of the game when it mattered. I mean, the first 3 quarters he didn't play great, but then he started making shots in the 4th quarter, and that's when the Knicks started coming back as a whole. And that was kind of the whole point of this series here. But he averaged 32 points. I mean, he again shot over 50% in this game here, and then shot well game 5, especially on the comeback. But that's just to see what Jalen Brunson's done. But we look here now. Jalen Brunson, he's your finals MVP. We gave the stats, but it's just Jalen Brunson. His entire career has just always been a winner. I mean, clearly now we see NBA champion here. He's your NBA finals here in 2026. He won in high school. We're not going to talk about his high school. He won in high school. Villanova, obviously, we know what happened there. He's a 2016 and 2018 NCAA champion. Of course, he won that with his Knicks teammates, Josh Hart, for only one of them, and Mikal Bridges for both of them. But you see in 2017-18, that 18 year they won the national championship, Jalen Brunson, player of the year. And he averaged 18 points that season, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. I mean, shot 40% from 3, 52% from the floor. I mean, he was great. He was one of the best players of college basketball players ever. I mean, he's one of the best winners in college basketball. One of the best winners ever. We see now that he's someone who I watched play in college, and you see there someone who's came in, won in college multiple times, played extremely well, and that just has continued. That's translated so well over to the NBA when a lot of people didn't know if that was going to translate as well. But you see him leading this team to the finals, and just undoubtedly, it was a potential chance maybe OG was going to get finals MVP, but nope. Brunson shot everybody up in that game 5. But New York Knicks are your NBA champions for the first time since 1973, 53 years. Back then in that 73 championship against the Lakers, it was Willis Reed being your finals MVP, averaging 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists over in that series. 53 years ago, from Willis Reed to Jalen Brunson. And it's just a crazy sentence to hear and say, the New York Knicks are your NBA champions. It's just been such a constant over the last, clearly, 53 years. It's just like, that's just the Knicks. But Knicks finally breaking through and winning an NBA championship here in 2026. But we see here now the Knicks can now move down here with the rest of the NBA. And here we're going to talk about some. So the Knicks breaking in his historically long championship drought. What are some of the other ridiculously long championship droughts in other franchises, in other sports too? We're gonna look at baseball, basketball, and football here. Starting here with basketball, Knicks find their way home now into the bottom left corner here. But so the teams that we're gonna gray out here, champions since 2000, and of course the Knicks, the Thunder won last year. Then we've also had the Nuggets, the Bucks, the Celtics, the Raptors, Warriors, Cavs. Of course, back in the 2016, 2017, those years with the Cavs and Warriors, Celtics, Heat, Pistons, Spurs, and Lakers. So those are all the teams that have won in the last 26 years now. A couple of repeats there, of course. Lakers, Celtics, Spurs, Heat winning multiple in this time, Cavs and Warriors. But then we see this next layer of teams who have won a championship at some point one or another, just before 2000. Bulls, of course, Michael Jordan. Rockets with Hakeem. Sixers, Wizards, Blazers, Hawks, and Kings. And that leaves this group of teams left. These teams, no championships. So I guess their championship drought is technically as long as their franchise has been around, but a little different. We're going to look at teams who have won a championship at one point in their franchise history. But the Timberwolves, the Grizzlies, the Jazz, the Pelicans, the Suns, the Clippers, the Pacers, the Nets, the Magic, and the Hornets. These are your NBA teams. Never won. We look over now to the MLB here. Of course, there we see a lot of teams here who we know they've won. But we get rid of this group of teams here. These are your teams who have won since 2000. And it's a big chunk of the group. 16 teams come off the board for MLB. That's also that's more than half the league. NBA, 12 teams came off. 12 different teams have been champions since 2000. MLB, 16 different teams. Of course, more than half of the 30 teams in the MLB. Yankees, Red Sox, White Sox, Royals, Marlins, Braves, Angels, Rangers, Astros, Phillies, Nationals, Cubs, of course, when they broke their over 100, I think it was 117 year drought. The Reds, the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers, and the Giants leaving. Then just a couple of teams who have never won one, which we're going to look at in a second, and teams who have won in the last 26 years. And these teams that come off the board now who have won one at some point. Blue Jays, Twins, Reds, A's, Mets, Tigers, Orioles, Pirates, and the Cleveland Guardians/Indians, which leaves only a couple of teams. Only 5 teams in the MLB who've never won one. Tampa Bay Rays, Seattle Mariners, Milwaukee Brewers, San Diego Padres, and the Colorado Rockies. Leaving now, we got football. We see, of course, all of the teams here at this point. And these are the teams who have won here in the past, again, 26 years since 2000. Of course, Seahawks. And then we've got the Eagles, the Chiefs, Broncos, Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Giants. You got the Colts. Of course, the Steelers, the Bucks, of course, the New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens. So these are all the teams that have won in the last 26 years. And then the group that comes off next, the group teams that have won at some point, just taking a break here. 49ers, Raiders, Cowboys, of course, the Washington Commanders, New York Jets, Chicago Bears. And that's it. Those are the teams that have won, but not since 2000. Leaving now, football has the biggest chunk of teams who have not won a championship. Of course, baseball, we saw it was only 5 teams. Basketball, it was only 10. Football, 12 teams who have yet to win a Super Bowl. The Cardinals, the Texans, the Jags, the Titans, the Chargers, the Bills, the Falcons, Panthers, Vikings, Lions, and then the Browns and the Bengals. So that leads us to then look at this. We're going to start a timeline. We're going to look along this. These teams who have won a championship, but obviously haven't won in a long time. So we see here, starting off, never. We're gonna give them off the go. Obviously, we said these teams, as you can see right here. But the most recent championship team post 2000 of any of these teams, the 1998 Chicago Bulls defeating Utah Jazz 4-2. Of course, Michael Jordan winning that series. That of course, the iconic series with the Bulls capitalizing on their second three-peat in 8 years. Of course, winning 91, 2, and 3, taking off a couple of years and then coming back 96, 7, and 8. 1996, of course, that's the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. Won the last time the Cowboys made a conference championship. It's been a long time for the Dallas Cowboys, but 1996, they won their 5th Super Bowl. They defeated the Steelers by 10 points. The MVP was Larry Brown. 27-17 win here for the Cowboys in 96. And of course, it's been that long since the Cowboys have been even that deep into the playoffs. We then move along towards 1995. That was the final year we saw both teams. And one of the top one here, San Francisco 49ers, it's strange to see that they haven't won a Super Bowl since 1995. They're a team that has been in the Super Bowl multiple times. They're pretty much a contender every year. 1995, they beat the San Diego Chargers 49-36. Steve Young was the MVP. Of course, Chargers in the Super Bowl that year, not winning. And then 1995, also Houston Rockets was one of the years where no MJ. Rockets capitalized, beat the Magic 4-0 in the finals. Hakeem, part of his back-to-back champions. Hakeem, again, MVP. 1993, Blue Jays, second World Series, defeating the Phillies 4-2, part of their, of course, 1992 and 93 back-to-back. Paul Molitor won the MVP for that one. The, at the time, Washington Redskins defeating the Buffalo Bills in 1992 with Mark Rypien as the MVP. That was the Washington's now Commanders, haven't been back since 1992. And I mean, the 90s, it's not that far away. Still like 30 years, but not that far away as long as Nick territory. But 91, Minnesota Twins defeating the Braves 4-3, Jack Morris winning that MVP series. Of course, we wanted to go for all of the era-exclusive, era-appropriate logos here. 1990, Reds getting their last World Series. 1989, Oakland A's, at the time, Oakland A's. 1986, been this long for Mets fans, defeating the Red Sox 4-3. Ray Knight winning MVP in that series, and same with Chicago Bears. 1986, defeating the Patriots 46-10. So it's been we're entering a 40-year time period now at this point with these franchises. And the Tigers, 1984, defeating the Padres 4-1 in that series. MVP Alan Trammell. Been quite some time for the Tigers. Been quite some time for these teams here. Orioles and the Sixers, that Baltimore Philly area. Last time they experienced a World Series / NBA championship. Orioles defeating the Phillies 4-1. Sixers defeating the Lakers 4-0. Those series being Rick Dempsey for Orioles and Moses Malone winning MVP for the Sixers. 1981, last time the Raiders 1-1 now in Las Vegas. Beat the Eagles 27-10, but been over 40 years now for the Raiders. Pittsburgh Pirates, it's been a long time since they've been in the championship. 1979, Willie Stargell MVP that series. It beat the Orioles 4-3. And then 1978, Washington Wizards, then the Washington Bullets, beating the Seattle Supersonics. Wes Unseld winning that, but that approaching on 50 years now at this point. And then this is where we're getting a little bit towards the end. 1977 was the last time the Portland Trailblazers won a championship with Bill Walton. 1973 for the Miami Dolphins. It's been a very long time for them. Of course, 1973, that was the Dolphins' second Super Bowl back-to-back. They won the 7th and 8th Super Bowls. And at that point, you're probably thinking like, oh, we're going to be we're set for the future. We're going to win so many more Super Bowls. Like, we already won 2, and this is only the 8th one. And then they haven't been back to the Super Bowl. They haven't been back. It's been a while for them. Same thing with the Jets. 1969, the New York Jets. That is the longest NFL drought on this list. Joe Namath, of course, MVP there. Guarantees they're going to win, and they did, beating the Baltimore Colts 16-7. But yeah, that was the Jets' only Super Bowl. They won it, the third one ever, and then have not been back to a Super Bowl since. And then we see 1967 here. That is the first year that this was the year of the NFL merger, when the NFL and AFL came together, and then there was only Super Bowls to decide who's the champion, and that was of course, Packers won the first 2, and then the Jets won the third. But 1967 was both the year that the NFL first started with the merger, and not first started, but it was the merger. And then 1967 was also the same year that the NBA introduced the Finals MVP award, with Jerry West winning that one with the LA Lakers. And then for our second longest NBA playoff drought, the then St. Louis Hawks, now of course Atlanta Hawks, beat the Boston Celtics 4-2 in that series. Of course, we just mentioned 1967 was the first year there was a Finals MVP. Of course, 1958 there's not going to be a Finals MVP, but still, the Atlanta Hawks 68 years ago for our third longest playoff drought. Of course, NBA, their first official NBA season was in 1950, and that was the St. Louis Hawks winning the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, their 10th. That was the 10th NBA championship, and that was the Hawks' last time, 1958. Again, 68 years ago now for the Atlanta Hawks. But now for our two oldest franchises in 1951. In the second ever NBA season, the then Rochester Royals defeated the New York Knicks 4-3 to win the NBA championship. The second ever NBA championship, the Rochester Royals, who then moved to Sacramento to become the Kings. So for the Kings, it has been 75 years since their franchise has last won a championship. And of course, we mentioned no Finals MVP at this point. The second ever NBA championship, beating the New York Knicks. 1950, we mentioned 51 second NBA championship. 1950 was the first NBA season. And then 2 years prior to that, 78 years ago from right now, in 1948, the Cleveland Indians defeated the Boston Braves, who would then become the Atlanta Braves. The Cleveland Indians won that series 4-2 in 1948, 70 years ago. And in terms of when that was in the MLB's history, you're gonna have to see all the way down there at the right. You're gonna see a little tiny little dot there. Looks like a fly on the screen, but nope. 1903. That is the first ever World Series. Boston Americans, the then now Boston Red Sox, would defeat the Pittsburgh Pirates 5-3. I believe it was a score, not a series at that point. But 5-3 in 1903, first year of baseball. So the longest championship droughts in all of these franchises. You got Cleveland Guardians has been 78 years for them. That's the longest in baseball. The longest in basketball, 75 years for the Rochester Royals. And then the New York Jets, 57 years ago, winning their Super Bowl. Of course, we've noticed here New York on this list twice, with the New York Mets in 1986 and the New York Jets in 1969. You got all kids growing up at that point watching that game, again thinking the same thing as the Dolphins, like, oh yeah, we won a Super Bowl when I'm young, like we got my entire life ahead of me that would win more. Nope. And it would have been on that same page as the Jets. It would have been the Knicks on that page if they hadn't won this championship here. Knicks getting off this list. How long's their championship drought? 0 years. Knicks nowhere near this list now, but still Jets, Mets, and a whole bunch of other franchises hoping to get out of this one at some point soon. We look now into baseball. Speaking of all these sports, ending with the Cleveland Guardians, now into baseball. Our standings change here in the American League. Tampa Bay Rays, they drop down to second in the American League East here as the Yankees have had a great week and the Rays have had a below standard week. Yankees now 44-27 leaders in the American League and the American League East. Rays 41-29, two and a half games back. Yankees commanding lead over the rest of the American League East, 10 games ahead of the Blue Jays, 11 and a half games ahead of the Orioles, and then almost 15 games ahead of the Boston Red Sox, who are just still down there, 29-41, just season. They potentially might be sellers at this point for this season if they really can't figure it out at this point. AL Central, the Chicago White Sox, 38-33. They've had a 6-4 week, and they look like they jumped across the standings. Guardians, they're holding a wild card spot still, 39-34 in the Central, and then the rest of the Central under 500 with the Twins, Tigers, and Royals. Into the West, Seattle Mariners, they are currently still holding atop that West, only 2 games above 500, 38-36. They had a good week last week, still kind of doing okay, but better than the rest of the West. The A's 36-37, holding on to that last wild card spot under 500. And then the Rangers, Astros, and Angels rounding out the rest of that division. Not too far out of that last wild card spot, the Blue Jays and the Rangers. Only a game out of that spot, but I mean, it's just the difficult part about this American League is no team is really eliminated. Even the Kansas City Royals, who are 29 and 45, they're only 7.5 games out of a wild card spot. And you look into the National League, we're going to talk about it in a second, but the bottom of that league, the Colorado Rockies, they're 11 games back. At that point, 11 games is unlikely to really come back from. But 7.5 games is kind of realistic for the Kansas City Royals. They could do it, but that's the American League. And the team that we're going to look at here who's been hot in the American League is my New York Yankees. They have been on fire in June so far. And usually we see the quote June swoon when they start to not perform so well. But Yankees 8-2 in their last 10. They are 8-4 in June. They're doing very well so far this month. They're first in the AL East. They're first in the AL now. And this is all what's being done in June with no Aaron Judge. They just have had timely pitching, good bullpen help, and some timely hitting. And a lot of this timely hitting has come off the bat of this veteran right here, Paul Goldschmidt, expected to have a reduced role this season with Ben Rice taking over a chunk of the first base work. But with Giancarlo Stanton out and now Aaron Judge, it's just been kind of Ben Rice and Goldschmidt swapping every game who's going to be the DH and who's going to go out there and play first. But both their bats have been in the lineup, and Ben Rice is playing as at an MVP level. But Paul Goldschmidt in his last 18 games is hitting 351 with 962 OPS, getting on base 37% of the time. He's got 5 home runs, 19 hits, and 19 RBIs, and 27 hits in those 18 games. He's been a driving force for the Yankees, helping them stay afloat here in this American League without some of their... because the Yankees are missing a majority of their opening day roster. No Judge, Grisham, Wells, Stanton, no Fried. All these players currently hurt, but they keep finding ways to win here in June. And then into the National League, Braves still holding atop of the NL East. I mean, they have a very commanding lead in there, but still holding a lead in the National League as a whole. Their rivals out west still just a bit back. But Phillies, they've put themselves in a good position here. 40 and 33 currently in that second wild card spot. Only a game and a half back of that first one there of the Cardinals. But Phillies climbing back into things. Doing very well. Doing what they should have been doing all along after a very, very, very rough start. Nationals, they just keep scoring runs. I mean, they still have the most runs scored in the entire MLB. They're 39 and 33. And then the Marlins and the Mets round things out, still struggling there at the bottom. Into the Central, we've kind of seen a separation of things here as the Brewers, again, separating as the leaders and probably going to be the winners of this division by the end of the year, 44 and 26, only a game and a half back from the Braves. So, I mean, we talk about the rivals out west and the Dodgers, but the Brewers are only a handful of games out of the Braves. But the Cardinals holding on to that first wild card spot, 40 and 31. And the Cubs, who have kind of bounced back from a great start to a horrible stretch to now even 38 and 36. They're 5-5 over their last 10, which I guess is better than what it was before. And kind of separating as the bottom of the two teams in the NL Central. The Pirates losing steam here now at 500, and the Reds also losing a little bit of steam under 500 as well. And then the West, the Dodgers only a half game back of the Braves, 47 and 27. They have more wins than them, just 2 more losses. And it's the Padres, who have kind of straightened things out over the last week, 37-35, doing well. And then the Diamondbacks, again, another team doing well. So these two, it's going to be an interesting wild card race in the National League with the Padres, Diamondbacks, the teams in the NL Central, and the teams in the NL East, especially with the Nationals currently holding on to one of those spots. But then the Giants and the Rockies at the bottom. But Nationals, we're talking about those teams. One of those teams holding on to a playoff spot, 39 and 35. They're third in the NL East, and they're third in the wild card spot. They currently hold a 1-game lead over the Padres and the Cubs, but still, Nationals finding themselves in a good position here. I mean, their offense has been doing very well, and that's thanks to a career year from CJ Abrams, their shortstop. hitting 285, getting on base at 37% of the time, and 876 OPS. 14 home runs, 53 RBIs, and 76 hits on the season for Abrams. I mean, that average, that on base percentage, and the OPS are all career highs for him entering currently in his 5th season. 14 home runs. Yeah, it's not his career high, but at this point here, he's on the pace that he's on with his 14 home runs. He's on pace to hit 31 home runs to shatter his season high of 20. His 53 RBIs are only 11 behind his career high. I mean, it's going to happen that all these numbers are going to break his career highs, and he's a big part of this offense doing well. I mean, he's on pace to finish with, again, 31 home runs and 119 RBIs at this point. Let's see if he can keep it up. I mean, he's most likely going to be in the All-Star game, but just doing a big part here, keeping the Nationals alive here. But then we move now to our final sport. This is a long video. I do understand. I do apologize. But there's a lot to talk about. The World Cup. We have about almost played one game in every single group so far. In Group A, we're going to start here, Group A and Group B. Mexico, they defeated South Africa in their first game last week, 2-0. They get 3 points, and another team getting 3 points is Korea beating Czechia. They won their game 1-0, so Mexico and Korea with wins here in Group A. Group B, draws across the board, both games finishing in a 0-0 tie. Switzerland, they tied with Qatar 1-1, and then Canada, they tied with Bosnia and Herzegovina as well, 1-1. So both these teams, all 4 of these teams earning 1 point here in Group B as there's draws across the board. Group C saw Scotland defeating Haiti 1-0, and then a surprise here in Group C as the favorites Brazil, they tied to Morocco by a score of 1-1. But both those teams earning 1 point there with the tie in Group C. And then Group D, USA, they defeated Paraguay 4-1, earning 3 points with a +3 goal differential. Australia, they also won. They beat Turkey. They beat them by a score of 2-0. So again, earning 3 points at a +2 goal differential. And those two teams on the losing as Turkey and Paraguay. Into Group E, Germany, they won their first game, you could say, fairly handedly, scoring 7 goals and beating beating Curacao by a score of 7-1. They earned 3 points, a +6 goal differential, the highest so far. And the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, they won their game as they beat Ecuador by a score 1-0. Into Group F, Sweden, they took their game over Tunisia. They won 4-0, earning 3 points. And then Japan and the Netherlands, they each tied, only scoring two goals each, but 1 point, only scoring 1 point for them. Into Group G and H, of course, remember, there's 12 groups here. G and H, again, this is this page here, G and H, draws across the board for all of those teams. Iran and New Zealand, they tied. Belgium and Egypt, they tied. Spain and Cabo Verde tied. Uruguay and Saudi Arabia, they all tied. How'd they tie? Iran and New Zealand 2-2. Belgium and Egypt 1-1. Uruguay and Saudi Arabia 1-1. Spain and Cabo Verde 0-0. Into Group I and Group J, our most recent games we've seen. Norway, they won their game 4-1. They beat Iraq, earning 3 points there, +3 in the goal differential. France, they beat Senegal by a score of 3-1, earning the 2 in the goal differential and a 3, and of course, for the win. And then into Group J, Argentina winning 3-0 over Algeria last night, and it was Austria beating Jordan by a score of 3-1, earning a +2 in the goal differential. But which brings us now to news with Argentina winning their game by a score of 3-0. That was reigning champions. No thanks in that game to how'd they score their 3 goals? A 17th minute goal by Lionel Messi, a 60th minute goal by Lionel Messi, and a 76th minute goal by Lionel Messi. So opening the World Cup with a hat trick is Messi. Messi now tying Miroslav Klose with his 16th World Cup goal. That is tied now for the most all-time. Miroslav Klose played from the 2002, 6, 10, and 14 Olympics, scored 16 goals across 24 matches. Messi, 2006, 10, 14, 18, 22, and 2026 now World Cups. 15, 16 goals now across 27 matches. Rounding out these top fives here is Ronaldo, not Cristiano, 15 goals across 19 matches and through 94 through 2006. Third place, tied for fourth place, sorry. Gerd Mueller, who had 14 goals across 13 matches in the 1970 and 1974, only 2 World Cups. And then Kylian Mbappe, who looks like he might be well on his way to blowing past both Messi and Miroslav Klose. Mbappe with 14 goals and only 15 matches through only this is now 3 World Cups, of course, the 18, 22, and 26, winning the 2018 one. But so this is your top 5 World Cup goal scorers. We are most likely going to be updating you at some point with Lionel Messi most likely passing Miroslav Klose. I mean, he's got the entire rest of the World Cup, and Argentina's the team you expect to move on pretty deep. You're expecting him to put another one into the net at some point. Same thing with Mbappe. Same thing with Mbappe in this one, but we now round out our final 2 groups who haven't played at all yet. Instead of showing the standings, we might as well just show the schedule. Today at 1 o'clock, that game has been underway. I mean, at the moment, Portugal currently holds a 4-0 lead on the verge of halftime. Sorry, 1-0 lead on the verge of halftime over the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 4 o'clock today, England will play Croatia in Texas, in Arlington at the Cowboy Stadium. 7 o'clock today, Ghana will take on Panama in Toronto. And then tonight, Uzbekistan will take on Colombia at 10 o'clock in Mexico City, Mexico. So those are the games taking place today. Those are games across both groups I and J. And then tomorrow, we have 4 more games here played by teams now playing their second game. Czechia will take on South Africa at 12 o'clock in Atlanta. Switzerland will take on Bosnia and Herzegovina at 3 o'clock in California at SoFi. Canada will take on Qatar in Vancouver at 6, and then Mexico will take on South Korea at night in Guadalajara. Well, then the last thing that I wanted to talk about today has been taking place in a combination of Los Angeles and Tijuana. So there's a bunch of teams in the World Cup playing in Los Angeles, but one of the teams, Inglewood, but one of the teams playing in Los Angeles / Inglewood is the Islamic Republic of Iran. And of course, we know at this point that the United States and Iran are currently involved in a war in the Middle East. But again, this is sports, not politics. We're going to talk about the sports aspect of what is happening here. So Iran qualified for the World Cup. They qualified in the AFC, the Asian Football Confederation, and they made it here. So they play in California in Inglewood at SoFi Stadium as a part of Group G with New Zealand, Belgium, and Egypt. But so Iran, they played 2 nights ago. They played on Monday in California. They played New Zealand. They ended up tying their game 1 goal apiece. So initially, there's been a lot of problems keeping the Iranian team here. One of the biggest problems has been the worry of the American government having this team here, considering they view them as a soccer team coming from a country that they are actively at war with, and something that they have to take as a security risk, not a team that fairly awarded their position here in this World Cup, and not to treat them as every other team is being treated in this tournament. So initially there had been problem with players, coaches, and officials, and just team staff with their visas about trying to have them stay in the country. But so instead, the United States World Cup combined, they have changed the Iranian team plans multiple times. So initially, the plan for them was to fly to the U.S. before each of their games, because they're really only playing a game once every 6 days or so, and their base camp is set up in Tijuana. But they would fly to the U.S. and would stay near SoFi Stadium 2 days before the game, and then they would leave the following day. So what initially they were also going to be in Arizona, but they moved them from Arizona to Tijuana. They didn't want them staying on American soil. They'd rather move them to Mexican soil in Tijuana, despite the fact they're playing all of their games in Southern California. Tuesday last minute change where they were forced to be returned to Mexico. And players need to rest and recover. They need to do that properly, and they can't do that on a team bus or on a plane going back and forth between the two. A bus ride between SoFi Stadium to Tijuana is 2.5 hours, forcing them to go back and forth just because they don't want them on American soil. I mean, we see the image here of this is the team bus in California of Iranian fans and supporters cheering them on outside of their bus. And one fact I didn't know that I researched and found out about this is outside of Iran, the United States is one of the biggest hubs of Iranians outside of Iran, and in America, Los Angeles has the largest Iranian population of any U.S. city at about 200 to 500,000, and with them playing here, they have plenty of support, and that they did have plenty of support in the stadium, at the game, outside of the game, in the bus. But it's ridiculous and it's unfair that the FIFA and America, who unsurprisingly are doing this to Iran, force them to go back and forth unnecessarily between two locations because they don't feel comfortable having them on American soil. I think that is ridiculous. Hopefully that could be changed and upended and just modified to give them fair treatment of what they properly deserve at this World Cup. But anyway, this has been going on for far too long. This video is very long today, considering, yeah, we're close to 50 minutes. But anyway, thank you all who have listened this far and long. Maybe to listen to bits and pieces of it. Go watch the World Cup and go watch some sports. Knicks have broken a drought. Go enjoy sports. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. Goodbye.